didn't have anything else better to do tonight than to come out here? All right, it really is a pleasure and an honor to be here with each and every one of you. First of all, I want to say to everyone here, I hope you had a happy Hanukkah, hope you had a Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year to each and every one of you in the year that is really going to redefine and get this country back to understanding what it means to be a constitutional republic. So thank you all for being here tonight. Okay, I just want you all to know that you're in a lot of trouble. Because you are here with the guy who is the #1 target for the entire Democrat Party. All right, so that being said, I want to read something to you all before I talk to you, and for me, most important, I want to hear your concerns. But a lot of things are being said out there on the airwaves. And I want to put some of this to rest. As you know, I sit on the Armed Services Committee. I was selected to be one of the conferees on this thing called the National Defense Authorization Act. And as you all know, the National Defense Authorization Act is done every year. It's the authorizing document to fund the United States military and give them their guidance and direction. So I'm going to read to you all the truth. Wow. December the 12th, 2011. This is the summary report that comes out for the NDAA. In the subsection on detainees, the fiscal year 12 NDAA includes critical provisions to clarify and reaffirm the military's responsibility and authority to detain Al-Qaeda terrorists. 10 years after September the 11th of 2001, the extremist and terrorist threat against the United States and our allies continues to evolve. As we begin drawing down forces in Afghanistan and conscious of the rise of the Al-Qaeda affiliates in places like Yemen, the fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 12 NDAA recognizes that the war against terrorism and violent extremism is broader than operations in any one country. The bill strengthens policies and procedures used to detain, interrogate, and prosecute Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, affiliated groups, and those who substantially support them. The conferees balance this approach with the conviction that the erosion of citizens' civil liberties in the pursuit of security constitutes a victory by the enemy. To that extent, these provisions do not extend any new authorities to detain U.S. citizens and explicitly exempt U.S. citizens from provisions related to military custody of terrorists. The NDAA of fiscal year 12 prohibits the transfer or release of Guantanamo detainees to or within the United States. It prohibits the use of funds to house Guantanamo detainees in the United States. It reaffirms the lawful detention of individuals from Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and associated forces engaged in armed conflict with the United States without extending new authority to detain United States citizens. That is the words, that's the language that comes out of the summary report. Now, I have pulled out from the NDAA page 657. And on page 657, this is what it says. Applicability to United States citizens and lawful resident aliens. United States citizens. The requirement to detain a person in military custody under this section does not extend to citizens of the United States. Lawful resident aliens. The requirement to detain a person in military custody under this section does not extend to a lawful resident alien of the United States on the basis of combat taking place within the United States, except to the extent permitted by the Constitution of the United States of America. Now, to everybody that's saying everything contrary, I want you to show me what page it says something different than what it says on page 657, taken out of the National Defense Authorization Act. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't legislate paranoia. There are a lot of people nervous about the person that's sitting in the White House. I understand that. But this is what I need you to do, and this is what you sent me to Washington, D.C. to do. You sent me there to read legislation. You sent me there to stay up late at night with the staff and find out each different section and subsection and be able to come back and do exactly what I just did. Now, when you hear people saying anything to the contrary, ask them very simple. Where do you find something that is contrary to page 657 in the NDAA? And this leads into what I have to tell you. If you don't understand how big a fight this is going to be in 2012, then you don't understand what's going on in this country. I was listening today on Lou Dobbs, and he had a little clip of Barney Frank. And Barney Frank said verbatim, it's the Tea Party obstructionists that are causing problems in Washington, D.C. The deputy White House press secretary called myself and Joe Walsh out by name on MSNBC, saying that we were the ones that were holding up this 2-month silly policy extension of the payroll taxes, when they knew that we had voted for a 1-year extension of the payroll tax that was paid for, that would not hurt Social Security, a 1-year extension of unemployment insurance with reforms, taking it from 99 weeks to 59 weeks, a 2-year extension of the sustained growth rate, the DOC for our doctors, and also the Keystone XL and the Boiler Mac. We did what the President of the United States of America, Harry Reid, and Charles Schumer said, extended for 1 year. But then somehow we lose the politics of demagoguery, and now we're going to have this kabuki dance all over again come about the end of this month, about a 2-month extension. And now the thing that a lot of people did not understand, and I hope some of you have read and have come to understand, is that this entire 2-month extension of the payroll tax is going to be paid for by American homeowners. The fees on loan guarantees for the government-sponsored enterprises are going to be raised to pay for this. Now, I got to tell you, I'm not happy with Mitch McConnell and the Senate Republicans, because we sent them over a good piece of legislation. For them to pull the rug from under us. If we don't get our act together as Republicans on Capitol Hill, we will be separated, we will be divided, and we will be conquered. And that's exactly what happens. So now we got to come back and go through this entire thing again. But I will tell you this, when we get back up there, those of us, those young freshmen that don't believe in the Washington establishment, that don't believe in the business as usual on Capitol Hill, we're going to say one simple thing. It's going to be based upon the legislation that we sent over. We will have it paid for, and we will get ourselves off of this Band-Aid approach to rectifying the fiscal situation that we have in the United States of America. Now, I know that there are some people that, you know, have said some things that, you know, Congressman West, you let us down, and Congressman West, you're not this, and you're not that. Let me tell you something. If I was not a pain in the butt to liberal progressives, I would not be their #1 target. But this is what I have to get you all to understand. In the United States military, they say that there are 5 different forms of maneuver. There's a turning movement, there's penetration, there's infiltration, there's an envelopment, and then there's a frontal assault. If you want to keep trying to do a frontal assault, if you want to keep showing people where you're coming from, you're going to get mowed down. And right now, the biggest threat to Washington, D.C., not just to the liberals, but also to the Washington, D.C. establishment on the Republican Party side, are constitutional conservatives. And you have to make sure that the voice that you brought forth in 2010 does not go away for 2012. 2012 is the most important election cycle for the future and the legacy of this constitutional republic. We are still living with the ramifications of some of the decisions that were made during the Carter administration. And I can tell you that if we have an additional 4 years of President Barack Hussein Obama, it is not going to bode well for the United States of America. But you got to arm yourself with the facts. You got to carry your fact cards around. You got to be able to tell people that we're getting close to $16 trillion in debt. You got to be able to tell people that we're on our 4th year of probably having a $1 trillion plus deficit. You have to be able to tell folks that you've had a 41% increase in food stamp recipients, 48.5% of Americans on some form of government aid, 16% increase in poverty level in the United States of America. 6.4 million Americans have been placed on the poverty rolls since this individual has been sitting in the White House. You have to tell them that back on Inauguration Day, the average price of gasoline in the United States of America, January 2009, was about $1.85. Today, it's closer to $3.45. You have to be able to tell them that on Inauguration Day, health insurance premiums on average in the United States of America was $3,354. Today, it's closer to $4,200. You got to be able to tell people that in January 2009, the United States of America was #1 in global competitiveness. Today, we're #5. You got to be able to tell people that the debt to GDP ratio, and explain what it means, the debt to GDP ratio, what you owe in proportion to what you are producing. In the United States of America, it's now at 101%. And show them and get them to understand the comparison to Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, and Spain. What you're going to have to do is understand very simply. There are 35 to 40% of Americans out there that are very happy with the growth of the bureaucratic nanny state. They believe that government should take care of everything in their lives from cradle to grave. But you've got to find that other 60 to 65%. And you've got to get them to understand what it means to be a constitutional republic. You've got to go back and you have to read the Federalist Papers and understand what the Constitution is all about. You need to be able to articulate and talk to people what the Commerce Clause is. And the important decision that is coming this year in the Supreme Court. Because the Commerce Clause talks about a federal government that regulates trade or commerce between the states, with other nations, or with the Indian tribes. And how dangerous it could be if the Supreme Court says that the individual mandate is constitutional and upheld by the Commerce Clause. Because what precedent does that establish if the government can tell the American people that they must purchase a private sector commodity? Where does it end? What car? What clothes? Where you go to school? What food? These are the things that we have to be able to talk to the American people about. We have to be able to tell them, why do we need to have tax code reform? When people start talking about economic equality, when people start talking about paying fair share, you got to tell them very simply that the top 1% in the United States of America pay 38% of federal income taxes. The top 5% of wage-earning households in the United States of America pay 58%. The top 25% of wage-earning households in the United States of America pay 86% of federal income taxes. But in America, with a progressive tax code system, 47% of wage-earning households pay 0. 30 years ago, that number was about 17 to 18%. What you have to get people to understand is, if you want to have this large bureaucratic nanny state, someone pays for it. There's no such thing as free health care. There's no such thing as free education. Someone is going to pay for that. What you have to be able to articulate to people is that capitalism in the United States of America is not the problem. The free market is not the problem. The problem in America is crony capitalism. Crony capitalism based upon a federal government that will take your hard-earned taxpayer dollars and they choose the winners and the losers in the free marketplace. That's not how our constitutional republic was established. When you talk to people about a federal government that believes it's the #1 venture capitalist in the entire world, definitely in our country, by taking taxpayer dollars and funneling to companies and corporations that they believe should succeed based upon their own ideological agenda. That's what you have to get people to understand. But it starts very simply by having your facts. Being able to tell people almost 30 pieces of job-creating legislation bipartisan, passed through the House of Representatives that are sitting on Harry Reid's desk. 1,000 days almost without a federal budget coming out of the Senate. You know, some people came to me and told me that there was a Pew Research poll that came out and said that the majority of Americans that believe the only people on Capitol Hill are House Republicans. That when you say Congress, that means House Republicans. This information machine that we're up against has been so effective that Americans don't even understand the three branches of government. That's why your most important role as we go forward is to educate each other and educate others. This is what you got to do. You've got to go out and talk to 5 people that do not believe as you believe. And you have to at least convince 3 of those 5 people that there's a different way and there's a better way. You have to show them the economic failures. You have to show them the national security failures. How many people here know where President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad will be next week? You're laughing. But he will be doing a Latin America and Central American tour. Swinging through Venezuela and coming up through Central America and visiting Daniel Ortega in Nicaragua. This is what I need you all to do. Gird yourself with knowledge and understand that constitutional conservatism has to be restored in the United States of America. Now, there are people that say the Tea Party was a one-trick pony, that it happened in 2010 and will not be back. And when you study and do a comparison contrast between midterm election cycles and presidential election cycles, you're going to see something that should really alarm you. In Congressional District 22, when you look at 2008 to 2010 voter turnout, there's at least an 80 to 90,000 voter difference. Presidential election cycles are not like midterm election cycles. Midterm election cycles, people understand legislation, people understand Congress, people understand government, people are informed about a lot of these issues. But what happens in presidential election cycles now? It starts to resemble American Idol. And you have to be prepared for the people that will come out and will vote based upon image. You've got to start right now. If you are serious about affecting the election cycle that will happen on the 6th of November, you can't wait until August to hit the streets, folks. You can't wait till September. You got to start right now. I need you to be writing op-ed pieces. And don't tell me they won't print them. They will print them. But you've got to write op-ed pieces. You got to get in front of the cameras. Every single Tea Party group should be having a press conference with the local media. Let them know who you are. And let them know that we're not some right-wing wacko bunch of people. What we are, we're everyday Americans. And we're concerned about the future and the legacy of this great nation. We're concerned about what we're going to hand over to our children and grandchildren. We're concerned about we could possibly be the first generation that leaves less than subsequent generations. That's unconscionable. And that is not what's going to happen here in the United States of America. So, I'm going to close by saying this. You got to get dogfighting mad. Exactly what Clint Eastwood said in Outlaw Josie Wales. Because if you're not dogfighting mad, it's going to get taken away from you. Now, I'm not talking about going out and frothing at the mouth and all of this type of stuff. What I am talking about is arming yourself with the truth, with facts, with knowledge, and be able to have intelligent discourse and debate. Now, when the other side starts to yell and scream at you, or when the other side sends individuals like the young lady over here to your right, who is a plant from the Democrat Party, who's here to take me and use that for whatever purposes that they want, You got to be able to stand and tell them one simple thing. We're not intimidated. We're going to be able to beat you based upon the issues. Because it's not going to be about issues for the group that she represents. It's going to be about personal attacks. It's going to be about character assassination. Because liberal, progressive, social welfare policies have failed in the United States of America. And they have failed everywhere all across the world. But what we believe in is the foundation of this great nation. And we are going to restore this republic. We are going to recommit to those constitutional principles and values. And we are going to reclaim our American pride. You got to ruck up. And you got to get out there. But the thing that I need you to arm yourself with is the truth and the facts. So God bless you all, and thank you so much.